from the client. So here's where we are, we're a 2, and then we're a 7, okay? That was where I started the clinical research. I did not start looking at animals and taking them apart. And then I would also do blood tests to make sure we weren't having any side effects to the mineral itself, okay? And thus far, we've gotten really good results. So I'm gonna give you a few overviews of where those results came. First is dermatological. So your skin is an organ of detoxification. And our animals are toxic because we live in a toxic world, and the earth is toxic, and they're eating toxic food. And because of that, we are able to give them back a healthy microbiome, and all the minerals, amino acids, the ferments, we're feeding it, it's alive, that they start to be able to have the equipment, okay? The minerals and the vitamins run our enzyme systems. And so all of a sudden, whatever I was doing worked because I gave them the raw materials. So if you're gonna build a house, okay, and you've laid a foundation and it's now time to build the rest of the house, and all the lumber arrives and the workmen arrive, but there's no nails, how far are you gonna get? You're not gonna get anywhere. So think of the nails as your minerals. Think of your workers as your vitamins. Your lumber as your amino acids. So if they don't all arrive together, nothing gets done, right? So we have to take this in as a whole food, as a biologically active food. So skin disease is my primary change that I'm seeing, and this is just oral. I'm not using it topical, and I use it as a soak. So it's really good at alleviating the itch and the inflammation in a soak. And it will depend on the animal, whether or not they get it just orally or if they get it as a soak. And the difference is in one individual, I wanted to get the picture here. I've been working with this dog for many years. And when he first came in, his skin was melting off. It was so severe. It was really a vasculitis. And pieces of his skin would just like slough off. And he was like in excruciating pain. And we got it back to where he didn't do any sloughing, but his skin was still kind of leathery from all that scarring. And there was no fur. So he never had that regrow. And then I put him on this and he's fully furred and his skin isn't leather. And it's taken a year. I mean, guys, this is not overnight. But even I didn't expect it. He just came in and I thought, well, why not? Let's try it, right? So inflammation as a cause, where is inflammation gonna start? It's gonna start with not having the vitamins, the minerals, the enzymes in our system that allow us to counter inflammation. Inflammation is a normal defense mechanism in our body. It's just that we've run out of the raw materials to stop the fire. So our firemen aren't working. And again, you come in here with this fermenting chlorophyll and you're able to start putting these fires out. And then I always say inflammation is the start of these other diseases. So if a disease ends in the word itis, all that means is that it's inflammation of the tissue. That's it. We use fancy words that really don't say much sometimes. So arthritis, pancreatitis, hepatitis, okay? Itis just means inflammation. So if you look at these cells under a microscope, pathologically, they look inflamed. And therefore, we can treat the inflammation at a root level and make a difference. Our body's designed to do this on its own. Like our body's pretty smart. A biological system would not be on this planet as long as it's been here. And that's before they had humans, right? It wouldn't be here if it didn't have these abilities, these programs to counter inflammation. But the more and more toxic we get, the more inflammation we have to combat, the more we use those raw materials, and then we run out of them. So this is the ingesta of a kill, and that's how important it is to an evolutionary diet, and this is what I can give them. And it doesn't matter if they're herbivore, omnivore, or carnivore, they need this because they're not getting it in their diet. My horses eat hay. They don't go out and eat off grass, so they're not getting it, except, of course, they get this. And one of my horses had this horrible skin rash that showed up, and I sent over a bottle of this and told my trainer, this is what I want you to do. He's like, this is really? And I said, you don't know me by now? And he's like, okay. And then he calls me back and goes, yeah, it's all gone. I said, you just had a bad batch of hay and they're running out of the nutrients they need. He goes, yeah, you're right. That was. We had a run on some hay and we weren't able to get as good a hay as we wanted. And I'm like, well, there you are. Okay, so we just gave it back to them. But inflammation is going to lead to other chronic diseases. And then I believe really strongly that this is a boost to any other supplement you're taking because it's going to help you absorb those other supplements. So if you're taking supplements that are not rich in a quantum field, you're probably not getting anything. And one of the ways to make sure you put your quantum field back in is to make sure you never take the fatty acids out of it and the essential oils out of it. So you want to make sure that you're collecting it all. And one of the ways to do so is to ferment it. So in the human arena, the number one thing that I'm finding is a decrease in inflammation and pain, an increase in mental ability. We have a lot of brain fog, and that has changed significantly. Because once I put the animals on this, then my clients are going, how do I get it? And I'm calling Mark going, how do they get it, right? So I look at this and I go, dull hair, alopecia, which means hair loss, okay, dry, devitalized skin, red skin is telling you that the inside of the body doesn't have what it needs. And your microbiome is responsible for 80% of your immune system. So how important is it for you to pay some attention to it? Very. So, Marcella, can you come up and give of your wisdom, which is intense, okay, of the importance of being able to assimilate our minerals? Because otherwise, guys, all you're doing is feeding the septic tank, and it doesn't need it, okay? It's not something that's gonna benefit us. So Marcella's gonna talk, and then I'm gonna call Dr. Jen up. She's gonna talk about ferments, and I hope this has been informative.
I'm on. So I just have what I can say is just in a couple of minutes, but when I went to school for nutrition, I was taught that everything in the human body comes down to a mineral or a vitamin deficiency. Now I'm going to share with you, very few people today are vitamin deficient. We get in ruts with our food. And if I were to live with all of you for a couple of months, you would be eating the same thing all the time. And then some of you go to nice restaurants and they're your favorite restaurants. And what do when you go to that restaurant? You order the same thing you always order. So in school with nutrition, I was taught that variety is everything. And the greatest thing that you can do is eat a little something that you haven't eaten before, because you don't need a lot of trace minerals, but guess what? You have to have minerals, trace minerals in our body. I studied a lot with Bernard Jensen, the late Bernard Jensen. And He's a master iridologist, but he wrote over 100 books on nutrition. And there's a book that he wrote called The Chemistry of Man, where you can actually break down every mineral in the human body to what disease or what symptoms are going to show up. Why do we masticate? Why do we eat our food, chew our food? Oh, you guys are funny. You thought I said something else. Masticate is chew your food, okay? So we have to chew our food 35 to 50 times. And today, everything we do is so fast. We chew our food to liquefy that food so that actually it gets into the intestine and gets into the places that it needs to get to. Variety is going to be everything, but the truth of it is not in one meal. We eat way too much food in one meal of variety. You ever heard of a mono diet, eating one thing? That could be the greatest thing that you could do one day a week, or a liquid diet one day a week. Gary always said to give your body a rest one day a week, and you would end up fasting for over 40 days in a year. And Gary fasted, water fasted every year for 40 days. And that's where he felt he got inspired spiritually with God with some of the supplements that we have in Young Living today. I am a big believer for minerals. I believe in Young Living that it is a sleeper product. And no one talks about it because guess what? Minerals don't taste good. Mark, do your minerals taste good? No. But I will tell you this, it's an acquired taste. It's a sleeper product, but you have to have minerals to sustain your life. So this is one of the greatest things that you look at in supplementation of what we're doing today. So I'm a real believer in minerals. Thank you.
So I just couldn't not let her talk, right? And what I will do is I will give them a variety of choices, and then I let them self-select. And they may not always select the same. So those of you who have horses, right, you can put out different salt licks. That's why. And do your horses know what they're looking for? And the deer that come in, right? They actually know. Their system knows. They can seek out what they need. So why not give it to them? And then they'll make those choices. And I'm going to tell you, with anything I prescribe, if they're running the other way, I did it wrong. Because their body knows. Biological systems recognize biological systems as long as they're alive. If not, it's just a dead piece of stuff, you know, and that's like licking a rock. And in horses, you can put this stuff right on the salt lick if you want. I like to steam it into the hay, okay, give it that way. Most of the animals come screaming for it because it's been missing in their diet. And luckily, they don't mind the taste of any kind of minerals. In fact, it's been missing in their diet, so they really don't mind. So right now, the buzz is about ferments. And so I want to bring up Dr. Jin. And, you know, why not take it in one supplement, but why not start looking at what's missing that's crucial to our diets? Like, this is important. It must be in our diet. And if they're not, how do we get them back in our diet? So we had a whole class on fermenting in my Chinese medicine course. And Dr. Jin now in school, I think that's what we do once we start learning this. We just keep learning and we never find that we've learned it all. So she just had a course in fermenting from an alchemy standpoint, from the perspective that's been lost in Chinese medicine that is really in the classics, which is that Taoist principle of harmony and oneness.